The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres is in Nigeria.
Drought is one of the major challenges besetting the community of northern Kenya.
The United Nations Department of Security is investigating allegations of surveillance and misconduct by Egyptian police towards delegates. Well, hello and good day to all tuning into Golfe TV Africa, and welcome to the 1 p.m. English News edition on Golfe TV Africa. I'm Metohuey ADOGLO with my partner,
Hazel, OGOIGBE.
Hazel, how are you? Doing better?
Yeah.
All right, let's get started. Now, let's start off with stories coming from the local territory still. In the following reports, some political actors share their take on the reform of the party system and its impact on the upcoming 2023 parliamentary elections. Now, let's have a watch.
À la mesure où nous avons moins de partis politiques qui existent aujourd'hui au Bénin et nous avons moins de listes aux élections qui sont.
I believe it has positive impacts in the sense that we have fewer political parties for the upcoming January 2023 elections. Currently, there are only 8 parties compared to the 30 we had previously, thanks to the reform of the party system. However, political migration remains a problem in spite of this reform. Obviously, not everything can be solved in 2 or 3 years. So we look forward to seeing what the reform has in store for us in the future. We really wish to have 2 great blocks, a block of the opposition and another of the majority.
Pour que, à la longue, nous aurons de vrais grands partis politiques, pour que désormais nous aurons au moins deux blocs, opposition comme mouvance.
Et ce qui a changé, ça a permis de diminuer les partis politiques. Ça a permis aux hommes, à la veille des élections, que si on ne me positionne pas ici.
This has allowed us to reduce the number of political parties we had. Moreover, it helped us determine the exact status of each candidate. There is much more seriousness, and the political parties are better structured than formerly. Today, the party is national, compared to what was done before, where there were city parties or even neighborhood parties. The 10% system was voted in order to force the parties to have a national representation in order to better structure their activities.
Pour cela qu'ils ont voté la loi pour mettre le système aussi de 10%. Pour encore peser sur les partis, pour leur dire qu'ils sont obligés d'avoir une représentation comme ça se doit au niveau national.
L'intention n'était pas mauvaise, on voulait réduire les partis, on voulait aussi qu'il y ait moins de transhumance.
The intention was good. We wanted to reduce the number of parties. We also wanted to reduce the number of political migration. However, as far as political parties are concerned, there are far fewer of them today. But on the other hand, regarding political migration, it is quite a different matter. People leave UP to go to BR and vice versa. Likewise, think of the PRD party, which merged with UP and became UP Le Renouveau. I wonder if the law have really allowed all this. It is necessary that all the political parties meet to evaluate this law and eventually readjust it to achieve the objectives. The outcome is mixed, and therefore the objectives have not been fully achieved.
Le bilan est mitigé et les objectifs ne sont pas totalement atteints.
Last night, the Nigerian House of Representatives have announced it will hold a national summit on education reform between November 22nd and 23rd. House Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila announced this on the floor of the Green Chamber on Monday while addressing his colleagues who resumed from a 6-week break. The House Speaker said the scholars of the tertiary education administrators and local and international stakeholders have been invited to submit papers on the theme of the summit. He added that the presentations and submissions will inform the policy recommendations of the summit, which will be published in the Journal for Policy Action and Academic Reference. Speaker of the House, Femi Gbajabiamila, adds more.
To meet our legislative agenda commitments across all other priority areas. As part of that effort, the House will convene a national summit on tertiary education reform on Tuesday and Wednesday, the 22nd and the 23rd of November 2022. The summit is an opportunity to begin the long overdue national conversation about the future of public tertiary education in Nigeria. Scholars, tertiary education administrators, and local and international stakeholders have been invited to submit papers on the theme of the summit, which is reimagining tertiary education in Nigeria. The most consequential decisions we make in government are those that will ensure the vast population of young people in our country are educated and adequately equipped to participate productively in the modern global economy. To achieve this, we must ask and answer complex questions about the operating structure of our public tertiary institutions, sustainable funding, education quality, and access. I urge all members of the House to participate in this crucial national conversation so that our experience, expertise, and concerns inform the policy recommendations that emerge from the summit.
The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres is in Nigeria. During his visit, he has a scheduled meeting with the President of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari. More information in the following report.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres is in Nigeria. He is meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari today here at the Presidential Villa. Ahead of that meeting, Mr. Guterres has been visiting internally displaced persons in Borno State, northeast Nigeria, which has been badly affected by years of insurgency. This is something that is very dear to Mr. Guterres. For 10 years, he was the head of the United Nations Refugee Agency, so he understands the plight of refugees and how to try to help them. And that is exactly what Mr. Guterres has promised the people and government of Borno State: international help. Ahead of the meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari, Mr. Guterres has also been laying a wreath at the UN building here, which was attacked by terrorists in 2011. It is in honor of the victims that lost their lives. Well, Mr. Guterres is also expected to meet with Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo, religious leaders, women and youth leaders, members of the diplomatic community, as well as the private sector. Let me just add that while in town in Borno yesterday, there was an attack on Chibok community. It is unclear if this was coincidence or deliberate, as the UN chief was in town, but we expect that terrorism will top the agenda when he meets with President Muhammadu Buhari today. Other wide-ranging issues, including the effects of climate change, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the invasion of Ukraine by Russia on the African economy, would be discussed. Mr. Guterres has been making a case on this tour of 3 African nations that as terrorist attacks continue in Sahel countries and move towards the Gulf state, this is no longer an African or regional crisis, but a global threat. From the Presidential Villa here in Abuja.
Minister of Information and Culture Lai Mohammed says tourism is an important sector of the economy, as it has the potential to boost trade, hospitality, transportation, as well as agriculture, among other things. The minister made this known as the ongoing United Nations World Tourism Organization Conference at the National Theatre in Lagos. To this effect, the Nigerian Minister of Culture has called for synergy between tourism, culture, and the creative industry to enhance global inclusive development, as this will bridge the gap in solving various challenges in the world.
And fastest growing economic sectors in the world, tourism has recorded a significant growth for decades and accounts for 7% of global trade prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. To further harness the potentials of the sector, the United Nations World Tourism Organization has decided to organize a global conference on linking tourism, culture, and the creative industry.
Question really, or the issue is, how do we balance the environment on the one hand with necessity of traveling? That is why one of the most important objectives of the UNWTO is actually to encourage and promote sustainable and responsible tourism.
Climate change is one factor that significantly impacts the growth of tourism in different parts of the world. Speaking further on the relationship between tourism and climate, peace, culture, as well as empowerment, the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, advocates a balance between tackling climate crises and enhancing global tourism.
Tourism breaks down barriers. It breaks down differences. It makes people understand, other people, and that would breed peace. And then the tools of tourism, such as music, such as films, allows you also to learn more about the people, their ways of lives. You respect them, and that way you are going to find, a lot of, peace. We're here today to let the world know that the next oil for Nigeria is actually in tourism and creative sector. And I'm glad that you're all here today because we need to inculcate this into you so that you grow up trying to, understanding that there's a future in the creative industry.
The minister called for collaborations from private and public sectors to advance the cause of tourism. According to him, this will break barriers among various people and further promote global peace. On his part, the Director General of the organization assured of collaborations with nations to promote tourism in the world. He says implementation of effective policies and mechanisms will better link tourism to culture and the creative industries, which ripple effect will create wealth for nations.
We want and we are here again to promote and to support new projects you have here in country, but to make them successful and successful worldwide. So it's very important, this kind of skills, this kind of knowledge. And again, we are going back to education. These projects need to be pitched, to be supported, to be internationalized, and that's why we are here, and we will continue the series to support youth and startups from Nigeria.
Organizers thereafter charged the participants to seize the opportunity of the conference to discover actual and potential investment opportunities as well as human capacity development, in addition to sharing best practices on how to move the sectors forward. Abisola Adebayo, TV 360 News.
Away from that, crossing over to the sports scene, the countdown has started for the first World Cup to be held in the Arab world. The host nation Qatar will face Ecuador in the opening match of what is already a controversial tournament. Now, the former French international Marcel Desailly urges the public to focus on the game.
The countdown has started for the first World Cup to be held in the Arab world. But Qatar's treatment of migrant workers, women and the LGBTQ community have prompted widening condemnation. Former French international Marcel Desailly urges the public to focus on the game. Think about the period during which the World Cup is being played. The idea that a large part of the players are ready is striking, and it will benefit this World Cup. We will see great games. We're going to see some intense games. We're going to have some very high-level games. Qatar, a country of barely 3 million people, is one of the world's biggest producers of natural gas. Some estimates put total infrastructure spending over the past decade at $200 billion.
The United Nations Department of Security is investigating allegations of surveillance and misconduct by Egyptian police towards delegates attending the COP27 Climate Summit in Sharm el-Sheikh.
The UN is investigating allegations of surveillance by Egyptian police towards delegates attending the COP27 summit in Egypt. The claims were allegedly put forward by the German delegation.
received anything whatsoever from the German delegation. I've seen reports in the media. They're rather vague, imprecise, and inaccurate mostly. Just on the face of it, it seems ludicrous because that's an open event. So why would any untoward surveillance exist in an open event when everyone can walk in, everyone can listen, everyone can hear what's going on? So I'd wait until before commenting on that.
The representative of Egypt's presidency of the COP27 dismissed the allegations, claiming it was a distraction from the issues under discussion.
I can tell you that some people we've been talking to said from developing world in particular, we're tired of these apparently intentional distractions from climate issues, excessive focus on unfounded allegations, particularly in the case when at the same time they're seeing backtracking from many developed countries on some of their commitments under the Paris Agreement and under previous decisions that have been taken. This is the interpretation of some people.
New York-based NGO Human Rights Watch had previously condemned what they described as Egypt's sweeping surveillance plans, which included cameras and phone records.
The People's Democratic Party has said that it has every option to challenge the candidacy of the presidential candidate of the All Progressive Congress, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. More information in the following commentary. The People's Democratic Party has said that it has every option to challenge the
We do have a little bit of technical difficulty with that particular story. We'll bring that to you once it is ready. Now, drought is no stranger to the pastoralist communities of northern Kenya. Dubbed the Singing Wells, herders here at the Metohuey River in Samburu County take turns to dig deep below the bed to give water to their cattle.
Kenya drought-stricken cattle herders are digging wells under dried-out riverbeds to extract water to keep their emaciated animals hydrated. Many animals have died, with one herder losing at least 30 in just 2 weeks. Charity group Mercy Cause is warning the lack of water could soon become a source of conflict between pastoralist communities.
We have two communities which are usually warring and fighting each other. These are Borana and Samburus. They are sharing this resource, not because they like it, it's because they have no otherwise. They have no otherwise. There's no water, and this is the only place with water.
The United Nations Water Agency estimates that roughly 400 million people across Africa lack access to clean water. However, British Charity Water Aid and British Geological Survey found that Africa has enough groundwater for most countries to get through at least 5 years of drought.
Groundwater is probably the biggest reserve of water in Africa, probably by a factor of about 100 to 1 over surface water. And generally speaking, Africa is underexploiting groundwater compared to other continents. So there are several continents around the world where they have chronic sustainability issues around groundwater, but Africa, generally speaking, is not there.
Only 3% of the total cultivated land in sub-Saharan Africa is irrigated, according to the UN. While groundwater accounts for 99% of all running fresh water on Earth, it's often undervalued, mismanaged, and overexploited, according to UNESCO.
The World Health Organization has trained about 360 medical public professionals and volunteers in Nigeria. Intent to boost preparedness and response to health emergencies in the country. Speaking at the opening ceremony at the Capacity Building, learning and training of the AVOC search team in Abuja, WHO representative to Nigeria, Walter Mulumbu, said that preparations in early, rapid, and execution of the outbreak response strategy are critical in detecting, containing, and mitigating the spread of a potentially dangerous infectious disease.
And the overwhelmed public health system and social safety net. We are dealing with insecurity that has generated humanitarian crisis and which require customized approach to respond to emergency that are flagging Nigeria in those areas. You will recall that at some point we thought Nigeria was polio-free, not knowing that polio was spreading in one of the bastions in the northeast. So we need to make sure that strengthen our system, we also address our capacity to respond in setting where humanitarian emergencies are going on.
Solutions that reflect national and local needs. It is in line with this that the Federal Ministry of Health has embraced the WHO Afro flagship projects to improve the capacity of all member states to prepare, detect, and respond to public health emergencies. The strengthening and utilizing response groups for emergencies such aims to ensure governments are equipped to mobilize resources and respond to public health emergencies within the first 48 hours in the context of strengthening national capacities for effective response to health emergencies. It is government-led and builds on existing successes with full participation of relevant national and sub-national stakeholders for a collaborative multi-sectoral support system.
In Nigeria, at least 4 people have been killed in a petrol tanker explosion in northern central Kogi. The tanker had a brake failure along a major road in the Ofu Council area on Thursday night when it collided with a vehicle obstructing the highway, causing a fireball, the police spokesman revealed to the press. Then exploded in Nigeria's north central Kogi state, police said on Friday. The tanker had a brake failure along a major road in the Ofu Council area on Thursday night when it collided with a vehicle obstructing the highway, causing a fireball, the policeman spokesperson told the press. The vehicle crushed cars on the way and 12 people were killed. BC Kazim, with Nigeria's Federal Road Safety Corps, said 18 people were involved in the crash. 7 sustained various degrees of injuries, while the remaining 11 were burnt beyond recognition at the scene, Kazim said in a statement. The road has been cordoned off, and road safety workers are working to identify the victims. Such crashes are common along most major roads in Nigeria, with new measures introduced by the country's Road Safety Corps failing to curb their occurrence. Kogi is a known hotspot, with more than 10 people killed in a similar crash in September.
Jumoke Dada is behind the multi-dollar furniture manufacturing brand Taylor. Now she's a young Nigerian, and for the average Nigerian using local resources, she uses Ankara and Ashoke to make unique furniture pieces. More information in the following report from our partners.
We launched this particular table called a Makishi table. It was 29K, then it was really super affordable. And, you know, from there, a lot of young people started tweeting about it. Oh, have you seen this new brand? You know, like the IKEA of Africa. This is not IKEA, this is Ikeja. Let me take you to our space at Taylor.
Lagos is known as one of the world's fastest growing cities and urban areas. From here, the revolution to change the African lifestyle expands. And she is the one who started it all, Jumoke Dada, who runs Nigeria's biggest and billion-dollar-worthy furniture company.
There are like 4 main sections here at Taylor. We have woodwork, welding, upholstery, and spraying. Initially, when I was like starting Taylor as a brand, most of the furniture brands I see around have that Italian feel or this bulky Chinese feel. There were no brands, you know, doing things like incorporating local materials like tie and dye, adire, ashoke, and Ankara. The reason why I'm doing this is I really want every single African to own a Taylor piece and be so proud that, you know what, this is made locally by my own people. Yeah, I don't feel like I've done something I'm satisfied till a customer says, oh, this is made in Nigeria, you know, this is similar to what I would get from Europe or from the US. So these are like some of the sofas that's been done. So like Kemi, Siwa Beanbag, furniture. The name comes from people that work at Taylor sometimes, even from some of our friends. It's just so that like people can see a part of themselves in those pieces, you know. People that loved the piece initially were majorly expatriates because, you know what, oh, this looks like it's Nigerian. And later on, like a lot of Nigerians started adopting it because it reminds them of Ashwebi and Owambe and all of those things.
For a country that's relied on international furniture purchases, young creative designers such as Jumoke have closed the gap by creatively designing pieces that are different yet affordable using locally sourced raw materials, bringing Nigeria center stage in this challenging and competitive market. Next time you sit on a chair, it might just be a Taylor furniture masterpiece. Even when Jumoke Dada goes out, she sees her success before her eyes.
I'm excited to be here at Danfo Bistro. I think it's one of my favorite places, so I enjoy coming here to, eat and have meetings. Right now, I'm here to have a meeting with one of my colleagues at work. It feels good to just come around and get to see the things that we get into at Taylor come to life and see how people interact with it. And I'm kind of really excited I get to interact with it too as well each time I come here.
I like some of the initiatives that were taken at Taylor. The most recent being the Pay with Flexi that we recently just launched, and you can see how that has caught fire, and customers are really excited about it because it gives them the flexibility of owning Taylor pieces that they've always wanted to own and just conveniently spread the payment across a certain number of months or at their convenience. I'm also very excited about the AR/VR. I know that that's even going to be bigger for us because it just launches us into an entirely different landscape. You don't have to go to a brick and mortar. From the comfort of your home, you can literally interact with our PCs and just generally have that experience. And yeah, it's definitely fun. It's fun working with Jumoke, fun working working with you.
I don't see Taylor stopping in Nigeria. I see Taylor in East Africa. I see Taylor in South Africa. I see Taylor in Europe. I see Taylor in America. And I feel it's just a matter of time. Taylor will get to that point whereby the way you have Roche Bobois of France, IKEA is Swedish, then a brand from Africa, like Taylor would go ahead to become an internationally recognized brand.
Also, amazing innovations by Nigeria. Now, moving on from that, top military commanders from the federal government of Ethiopia and its embattled Tigray region have agreed to allow unhindered humanitarian access to the region and form a joint disarmament committee following last week's truce. They signed the agreement Saturday, November 12, after days of talks in Nairobi.
Warring sides in the Ethiopian conflict agreed on a peace roadmap on Saturday. The Chief of Staff of the Ethiopian Armed Forces and the head of the Tigrayan forces signed an agreement in Nairobi, Kenya, that they said calls for disengagement from all forms of military activities. Both parties assented to protect civilians and facilitate the delivery of humanitarian aid in war-torn northern region of Tigray. The African Union led talks in Nairobi followed the cessation of hostilities agreement signed by Ethiopia and Tigray leaders in South Africa last week.
To express our full commitment for bringing peace and stability to our people and country. Therefore, we will fully dedicate ourselves to implement the Pretoria Agreement and this declaration. To this end, we would like to affirm our full commitment to the people of Ethiopia, to this panel and world.
We have suffered a lot of misery over the last 2 years and still continue to suffer. The commitment we are making today is with the hope and expectations that our people's suffering will come to an end soon.
The commanders who had been meeting since November signed the agreement on November 12. The agreement states that the disarmament will be done correctly with the withdrawal of foreign and non-Ethiopian military forces from Tigray. Former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo, who was helping to facilitate the talks, said Saturday that humanitarian aid should have resumed. Former Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is also involved in the talks, thanked the commanders of their commitment to peace. According to the lead negotiator from the Ethiopian federal government, the next meeting of military's leaders will most likely be held in Tigray in mid-December before a final meeting in Addis Ababa, the Ethiopian capital, in January. The Tigray conflict began in November 2020. The brutal fighting spilled into Amara and Afar regions as Tigrayan forces tried to break the military blockade of their region. The war in Africa's second most populous country, which marked 2 years on November 4th, has seen abuses documented on both sides with millions of people displaced and many famine. It reignited in August after months of lull that allowed thousands of trucks carrying humanitarian aid into Tigray. Phone and internet connections to Tigray are still down, and foreign journalists and humanitarian researchers remain barred, complicating efforts to verify reports of the ongoing violence in the region.
Crossing over to Chad, after 621 arrests made following the 20th of October process in Chad, The Chadian government has for the first time publicly admitted the figures of more than 600 arrests mentioned by several local and international non-governmental organizations after these demonstrations against the extension of 2 years in power of General Mahamat Idris Deby Itno. Now, around 401 people have appeared in court and the other 220 before an instructive magistrate, according to N'Djamena prosecutor Musa Wade Jibrin.
621 people, including 83 minors, have been arrested in Chad since the violently repressed opposition protest that left some 50 people dead on October 20. The public prosecutor in N'Djamena announced Friday. Around 401 people have appeared in court and another 220 before in an instructing magistrate, according to N'Djamena prosecutor Musa Wade Jibrin. This is the first time that the authorities have publicly admitted that the figure of more than 600 arrests mentioned by several local and international NGOs after these demonstrations against the extension of 2 years in power of General Mahamat Idris Deby Itno. Local and international NGOs have been saying for 3 weeks that dozens and even hundreds of people were killed in several towns on Thursday. However, the government has so far only acknowledged only 50 deaths by bullets and more than 300 injured, including 10 killed among the forces of order. President Deby, who was extended in office for 2 years at the beginning of October by a National Reconciliation Forum boycotted by a large part of the opposition and major rebel groups, has always claimed that the 20 October demonstrators were planning an insurrection to overthrow the government. The 38-year-old Mahamat Idris Deby was proclaimed head of the government by the military 18 months ago following the death of his father, who was killed by rebels on his way to the front line after 30 years of ruling Chad with an iron fist. The protests organized by opposition parties to mark the date when the ruling military had initially promised to hand over power had been banned. However, thousands of demonstrators marched in Chad's main cities to demand return to civilian rule and condemn what some viewed as France's interference in the country's internal affairs. Since the event of 20 October, 621 people have been arrested by security forces and transferred to the high-security prison, Korotoro, in a high-security location in the desert, some 600 kilometers from the capital.
Welcome back to the 1 p.m. English News on Golfe TV Africa. Metohuey, ADOGLO, Michael Lee, Hazel.
OGOIGBE.
Sorry, I wanted to say your name for you. Trying to have you chill a little bit. All right, so yeah, we are going to dissect the newspaper review. We start off with papers coming in from Nigeria. Now let's touch on the Nation Nigeria. The front page of the Nation Nigeria reveals Abdulsalami panel rising violence threatened. Now, if you have anything to add, just let me know. So yeah, Abdulsalami panel, rising violence threatens polls. Politicians not ready to play by rules, says INEC. INEC has come on. INEC is the Independent National Electoral Commission, and they have come out to say they're basically the referees of politics of the elections in Nigeria. And if they've come out to say that politicians are not ready to play fair, I think there is a lot to go by that. You can get that on page 4. Looking at the top hand of the paper, it says, why I invited Buhari, Obi, Kwanso, others by Wiki. We have on page 29. Also on page 4, poverty doubled under Obi, says Soludu. Petrol subsidy not sustainable, Ipman insists. Now, this is on page 8. Now,
let's talk about the Soludo story.
All right, so.
You know, Charles Soludo was the former CBN president, you know, the Central Bank of Nigeria. He was the former president. Now, he's now the present governor of Anambra State. As we all know, Peter Obi was also the former governor of Anambra State. Now, from the discourse, the way, you know, on social media, the rapport and the different opinions and what Charles Soludo has come out to say about Peter Obi, it simply shows bad blood. Do you understand? Because first of all, he talked about the fact that you just read the story talking about poverty.
Yeah,
poverty doubled during under Obi's term. And then he also talked about the fact that Peter Obi invested some amount of money for the state and it did not make profit. And then you'll not be wondering that at the end of the day, if your co-brother that comes from your state did not even do things that you think it is supposed to do, it's the right thing right now for you to attack him, considering the fact that right now he's coming out for presidency? Are you just saying it because that is truly the fact, or are you saying it because it's a lot of bad blood? So right now, a lot of Igbos are reacting. You know, if you go on social media, you just see a lot of Peter Obi fans are really talking about the fact that Soludo is bitter, Soludo is angry, Soludo does not understand the concept of brotherhood, because when you look at Atiku, you look at Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, you realize that they have a lot of flaws, even things that they were supposed to do and they did not do, which is not justifying what they ought to do and they did not do. But the fact that they are from a political, geopolitical zone gives the people a particular feeling of solidarity, that this is our candidate, this is our own. So at the end of the day, there's this saying in Igbo language that says, Indi Igbo ne weze, meaning that Igbo society is egalitarian in nature. They don't have kings. But even if you don't have kings, even if power doesn't rest with one person, does it still mean you need to divide your brother? What would you gain? So it's just really, really very heated policy presently concerning various outbursts of Soludo, the present governor of Anambra State.
Well, back to what INEC said. INEC has said that politicians are not ready to play fair.
You know, but at the end of the day, he doesn't belong to APC. Yeah. He doesn't belong to PDP. He belongs to ABGA.
Yeah.
You understand? So what does he stand? What does he stand to gain? That's the question.
What's your beef?
It's just an irony.
Or his beef is he doesn't want Obi to be president of you know, it'll be dramatic, or it'll be a plot twist. Obi becomes president, and he has to eat his words. All right, moving on from that, petrol subsidy not sustainable. IPMAN insists. Of course, petrol subsidy is not sustainable with this current economic situation. But of course, we Nigerians know if Nigeria has proper refineries,
exactly,
then it will be sustainable.
Exactly,
and this is what Nigerians are crying for.
Yeah, but the arguments they are given is, you know, the fact that fuel goes for 100 and something in Nigeria presently is such that the government is paying a lot of money. You know, so they are like.
No, but you know, that's what they should understand. Nigeria's crude oil belongs to Nigerians. When Libya was selling oil, a liter of petrol for less than the price of pure water, why? It's because the oil belongs not to the government, it belongs to every single Nigerian.
We don't process it, so when we export it in, it makes it more expensive.
That's where it is unsustainable. And this is why Nigerians say, build refineries so we can have a sustainable system and so Nigerians can benefit from the oil.
Because the NNPC is complaining that they are paying a whole lot of money to make fuel available at that price.
Yeah,
but at the end of the day, the truth is, if, as you had said, if they had built the refineries, we would not be chanting this song we are chanting right about now.
Now, looking a bit at a little bit of press, we had now say fake news. NBC finds Arise TV 2 million naira for the sports of fake news. Now, the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, has sanctioned Arise Television for airing false news about the presidential candidate of the All Progressive Congress, Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu. The television station is sanctioned to pay 2 million naira for breaching the broadcasting code. The sanction was contained in a letter of November 13, 2022, addressed to the management of the station. Now,
what is the fake news?
Exactly, this is the way I'm coming to. Now, the station was fined following the protest letter of the NBC Special Advisor, Media Communication Public APC, for the campaign of. See, right now they're still not exactly giving out the details, so we can find out more about the details on page 7 of the Nation Nigeria. But I can, if I was to make a guess,
big guess,
it would be about the
narcotics.
Exactly. This just tells you how hands are deep, how Asiwaju has hands.
You know, talking about that, yesterday there's a popular investigative journalist by name David Hudein. Now he brings out all his facts before he talks about a particular case. Now the recent development is, before, when you're talking about how did Bola Ahmed Tinubu get his money, he said that he works with Deloitte. Deloitte is a foreign company in the United States of America. And then David Hudein went the extra mile to send a message to Deloitte to say, oh, did this particular person work in your organization? I would like to know. And Deloitte said, we have no account of such person. And then he posted the response on social media. So we're now saying that you said you made a lot of money from Deloitte, you saved your allowances. So now Deloitte is saying they don't have any record of you because, you know, every company normally will have the, you know, the biodata archives of every single stuff that's passed through. So the question is, okay, so where did the money come from? That's a rhetorical question that would unfold as time goes on.
All right, see if he doesn't die before. All right, moving on from that, we head now to the next area of the edition as we touch on the Punch, still in Nigeria. The front page of the Punch, 2023 poll, Soludo attacks Obi again. Says as government cannot win. We have it on page 2. Negotiate with Tinubu, and Atiku Soludo advises Southeast. Now, why I rejected Obi's offer to defect to PDP in 2017 poll, says an Abra governor. Governor still Soludo.
Still beefing, still hating.
Soludo allowing himself to be used. Obi will win Labour Party PPC. Okay, still on 2020 polls. Now, moving on from that, top hand of the paper says INEC office attacks worry. INEC office attacks worry. UK-US opposes rigging. Page 2. Now, military places 95 million bounty on 19 bandits kingpins. Page 14.
That's, you know, ask the question. Okay, so the military is sponsored by the Nigerian government. So the Nigerian government has this amount of money.
Oh, did you not see the
place
budget?
Some bounties.
Did you not see the budget?
And then you not be wondering, so why has the demands made by the academic staff union of university, why is it still unmet? That's just the question.
They have 95 million to throw. When Nigeria is a precarious situation.
It's just a very funny
All right,
occurrence.
organized private sector set $9 trillion agenda for the federal government. We have it on page 20. Half pay. ASU says lecturers, intellectuals, not casual workers. You cannot just give them half pay and expect to get away with it like that. We have it on page 28. Looking at the bottom half of the paper, it says resists government control. Nipan advises media practitioners. We have it on page 14. Tinubu's victory certain. It says land long as campaign begins. We have it on page 25. A driver arrested for crushing a Ekiti policeman to death. We have it on page 4. But a picture of the policeman just right there. Very sad story there. All theft. Federal government arraigned 16 foreigners, detains vessel. We have it on page 8 of the Punch Nigeria. Moving on from the Punch Nigeria, we head to the next paper of the edition as we touch on the sports. The Punch Sports Extra. I'll be right back.
All right.
Now, looking at the Punch Extra, Road to Qatar, 5 days to go. All the teams are already getting set. Senegal has arrived. A couple of African nations have already arrived in Qatar. Also, bench Barty's Niger tells IR scope. We have it on page 9. Emery eyes Hazard return to swoop in for Hazard. We have it on page 4. Odegaard sends warning to Arsenal rivals. Ghana beat Niger without 10 key players. This, as Kufuado has come out to say. Page 7. Adesanya, I would have beaten Pereira, given an excuse rather. We have on page 7. Well, Adesanya is one of Nigeria's most popular UFC fighters. He lost a bout against Pereira just on Sunday. Very, very sad story there. Potter has Chelsea owners full backing. We have it on page 5, but has lost 3 consecutive matches in the Chelsea dugout, and this will put pressure on any manager. But apparently, the U.S. owners have come out to say they still trust and believe in Potter. Now, PSG failure down the eagle. Poch has come out. Pochettino, coach Southampton, also coach Spurs in the United Kingdom, has been coaching PSG, Paris Saint-Germain, before he lost his job recently. He's come out to say eagle is the downfall of PSG. Now, we know PSG has like the 3 most popular players in the world. They have Mbappe, they have Messi, and they have Neymar. And these 3 players are like top in the whole world. And now, how do you control players like this that have most accomplished everything? The World Cup, Champions League, Ballon d'Ors, and how can you control those players? And that has been the downfall of PSG. That's what Poch has come out to say. Now, Cristiano Ronaldo has come out to also reveal that he feels betrayed by Manchester United. Now, the story has spread like wildfire throughout social media. It's been everywhere. You can get more about it on page 4 of the Punch Extra. It's also available on almost all the sport channels on the internet. Napoli received general offers for Osimhen already. Osimhen is Nigerian international. It's going to be set to become the most expensive Nigerian player ever. We have that on page 7. Now, moving on from that, we head now to the Daily Guide Ghana. The front page of the Daily Guide Ghana reveals Nana sacks Adu Bushima over corruption. For the story there. My hands are clean, says Boamoya, the vice president. See that on page 2. Galamsey Queen Forge marriage certificate for residential permit. Read on page 6. Governor opens You Start Job Skills program. And Opumi dismissed judges to continue trial. Moving on from that, we head now to the Star Kenya. The front page of the Star from Kenya reveals painful tales of slum dwellers living with HIV. In one case, a mother wife spouts ARVs and puts them in her husband's food. We have that on page 4 and 5. On the right-hand side of the paper, it says neurosurgeon looks back on his long career. You can get more about that. It's a quick interview. We have it on page 2. And also, why Luka MP's Machok's weekends retreat flopped. We have that on page 6 of the Star from Kenya. Well, this is all we have to share with you on the African Newspaper Review.
Thank you so much.
Hazel.
Thank you so much, Metohuey ADOGLO. And our dear viewers, to conclude this news edition, here's a recap of our top stories. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres is in Nigeria.
Also, drought is no stranger to the pastoralist communities of northern Kenya.
We also saw that the United Nations Department of Security is investigating allegations of surveillance and misconduct by the Egyptian police towards delegates.
And so we conclude this edition of the 1 p.m. English News on Golfe TV Africa. I'm Metohuey with my colleague
Hazel. OGOIGBE. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your day.